All right, welcome and thank you all for joining us for today's webinar. The marketing org that wins in 2026 looks nothing like yours today. So to be honest, the marketing playbook that we've all grown up with, professionally speaking, is pretty much obsolete. We're being challenged with reductions in budget and headcount, but the revenue targets are still going up and to the right. We know that a simple reduction in headcount is not the answer, and we're being told to use AI to quote unquote make up the difference. So the net is that the organization that got you here is not going to get you through 2026, not successfully anyway. So you need a new design, one that looks at what is core to your organization versus what can be outsourced or automated to improve efficiency and effectiveness. So, to help us think through all of these things, I am joined by three leaders who aren't afraid of the hard truths and, in fact, embrace them. Sydney Sloan, Craig Rosenberg, and Inverta's own Kathy Mackey. So, a few quick things before we get into it. So, one, yes, we will be sending out the recording and the transcript after today's call. So, fear not, that will wind itself into your inbox either later today or first thing tomorrow. And then secondly, we will have Q&A at the end of today's session. So feel free to put your questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen. And we will get to those if we have time at the end of today's session. Even if we don't, please put them in the Q&A session or section, and we'll do our best to get you answers following today's session. So with that, formally, I'd like to introduce our speakers today. We have Sydney Sloan, CMO of G2, Craig Rosenberg, Chief Platform Officer at Scale Venture Partners, and like I said, our own co-founder, Kathy Mackey. And all three of you, I've known you all for more than 15 years. That's just a little, whew, little hard to like wrap my head
That
around,
is crazy.
but I've known all of you for longer than that. So with that, I am going to back away and turn it over to Kathy to get the conversation rolling.
Great. Thanks, Jessica. I'm actually excited about this topic because over the last 3 or 4 months, I have had so many conversations with marketing leaders about essentially the marketing org design. And it's fundamental, that is just changing. It's driven by AI, it's being driven by how buyers buy now, and it's being driven by the CFO. I mean, that's just come up. And one thing I just want to sort of set the scene with is after having a lot of these conversations, I think marketing is in a very unique, it's probably the most unique differentiated structure of anyone in the organization. And that we probably have the largest discretionary budget. We rely on partners probably more than any other group, either partners, vendors, agencies. We have probably a widest diverse group of job functions and talents, and they're not easily interchangeable. So let me explain. A PMM probably can't do an event. An event person doesn't know how to do MarTech. A MarTech person can't do paid media. And so these roles are not interchangeable. And AI is disrupting them all, right? Basically, at the same time. And so everyone's been coming saying, how do I think about my org now with AI? And so think of it as eight distinct, professions. And the other thing is G2, Cindy, your group just published a great report on AI and marketing, and Scale Venture Partners did. And what I took away from both of them is you both talked about what I call the 10% thinking, which is right now it's being used a lot for efficiencies, optimization, like doing what we do, but faster. But Cindy's, yours really got into a lot with the agentic AI. And to me, that is the 10x thinking. Like, how do we rethink our whole go-to-market? And Craig, you've talked a lot about that. Things we couldn't do before, and what does that mean for the organization? So with that, based on the report, Craig, I am going to start with you because your report said that I think marketing had the highest uptake in AI usage.
Yep.
And where do you see marketing actually getting the value right now? What are those use cases you're seeing? What are the ones that are really dominating? And why do you think teams are sort of stuck at that, I'll say, efficiency level or 10% thinking?
Yeah. Okay, I'll answer the first part first. There's a lot in there. I want to make sure I get to everything because I don't think people are stuck.
Okay.
That's really important. I'm not, and it's important that people should hit phase one first and maintain it and then get to phase two where the complex use cases come in. But I don't believe people are stuck. I think it's the best thing that could happen to them. That's really important. Like, I think we have big expectations on what it could do, but the most important thing right now is to just do it. And the simple use cases are the ones that have been great for all of these marketing teams. So ready? So AI adoption by marketing, 81%. By the way, we surveyed 275 go-to-market leaders. So 81% adoption by marketing. That's extraordinary because the next two were sales development and sales at roughly 62, 63%. So that's a big leap. We saw this coming because I would say last year, roughly November, we had a product marketing council. And so I was like, we're going to do this like really quick hit report and see how people are using AI. And we have all these different events, these councils around functions. I'm like, and the least will be product marketing. It's like, I'm like, the SDRs are going to say they're doing it. And no, it was the opposite. Like product marketers were like 100% using AI. And you could see that in the use cases. So you asked about the use cases. So the
Yep.
the top one was um, messaging content creation. So that was 97% are doing some version of that. Now, be careful here because whenever I bring that up, people are like, oh my God, and they're creating terrible content. It's like, that doesn't mean there's no human in the loop. Okay, so everyone, just before you write some stupid LinkedIn post on that, I don't mean that they're just sending it out. It is a big umbrella. But like even Sydney, we asked Sydney, and she's like, she has this quote in there. It's like marketing teams are producing more assets in a single quarter than they used to in an entire year. That is part of the efficiency that we're seeing happen. The other one is conducting research, which you see across the board, and we all do that. I mean, essentially, the horizontal platforms are like
Yeah.
search engines, right? So that was about 73%. And so we grouped those in phase one. Those are use cases you can do today. Like people could leave this call and go do that if from the numbers, I bet they've already done that. But yeah, those are the top two. There's others that are in the 50%. We kind of lump those into phase two, and we could talk about that when we start to talk about more complex use cases. But what's interesting is 92% of the marketers said that they've increased productivity. And so, in my opinion, the point of the report is we should take that as a win because the
Hmm.
most important thing is with AI is to just start doing it. Now we can start doing a lot of the agentic stuff that Sydney's talking about and like really flexing some serious muscle. But in the meantime, like everyone in the org should be, leveraging, productivity type AI just to make themselves bigger, better, and stronger. And especially from the way you guys led here, which is the mandate, whether there was AI or not, was for marketing to do more with less, right? If you just took AI out, AI is just a reason for us to go, okay, you're going to do more with less. And by the way, you have AI, so you should be able to do it. But like
It's
there, you
true.
were going to have to do
Yeah,
it anyway. I mean, that's like
I would agree.
that was the
Yeah,
reality. Anyway, okay. I hope that answers your question.
it does. In fact, that makes me think, Sydney, I think you've done one of the better jobs I've seen in the industry of getting your team competent and comfortable with AI. How did you do that? Because I've seen a lot
Yeah.
of CMOs struggle.
Well, there was a group of us that started meeting about last year this time, and we were starting to hear and learn things, and we didn't want to be left behind. And so I think I panicked quite a bit in the first couple of meetings because we had Guillaume talk, and he was like so far ahead, and was like, "Oh my God!" I'm like, "Oh," and G, he goes by G, um, and and so it was like, well, I got to get on this like yesterday. And so I think, the first step that Craig touched on already is just getting your teams comfortable by using it. And I did a LinkedIn post that said, "Help, I need an AI coach." And so I got all this great, like who I should be talking to. And so interviewed a bunch of people and hired a company called Collected Company, or like formal Googlers, because we were going to use Gemini because that's what we had at our availability. And so just getting people comfortable with like how to prompt. And back then, prompting in Gemini was a little bit of a coding exercise. You still had to
Yeah.
like have like, hashtag context and like really understand the fundamentals, where now you just like naturally, you just ask it a question and ask it how to prompt for you. So it's so much easier. But we went from like 5% of the team using AI in their day to day to 95%. And I'm still trying to figure out who the extra 5% was, but maybe they're unhappy.
AI can help you find that
Yeah.
out. Yeah.
But I did things like I tracked who was attending the sessions. I had like,
Yep.
secret attendance being taken because I wanted to understand who was leaning in and who wasn't. And like the content team leaned in, the product marketing team leaned in on those use cases that Craig was referring to, like content, everything from ideation to editing, but there was still like humans writing the content
Yeah.
because I believe it, it still has to be in the voice of and from people. But so that's how we started. And then to be honest, we kind of got stuck on that phase one to phase two in the scale report. Like, okay, I know, like we inventoried all the use cases and it was like, now let's go build it. And it's like, well, who's going to do it?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of like, I'm too busy. I'm like, it was like, no, like we have to. And so what I hear and what I did, and again, I just learned from others by talking to people is, okay, well, then we're going to lock ourselves away. We're going to do a hackathon and we're just going to get in and then we're going to build something. And I think what I would have done differently in now, if it was like the first time, I'd do it with the go-to-market team. I wouldn't do it standalone as marketing. Like, what are our use cases and how can we build this together? And how should we be thinking about the outcomes and the problems to be solved? So we're more coordinated. The sales was doing their use cases and building it on their own, and marketing we were doing our use cases and
Yeah.
building on our own. And I would do them together now. I think that merge the playbooks, Craig.
But did so the hackathon to get to the more complex use cases worked?
So we picked the website. So I had an
Uh,
audacious goal. I'm like, can we consolidate 5 websites and rebuild it in a month? Can we? We couldn't, but it was pretty awesome what we were able to accomplish in the day.
yeah, yeah. Hey.
um, they tried, and of like understanding information architecture and user workflows, and we gave it all of our systems, and so it made recommendations of how we could think about integrating our systems and what should we plug into where, and so it was fascinating. I mean, like that's like $150,000 web dev project of the past that
Yeah.
we prompted in an afternoon. And
That's
it was
amazing.
very specific. So, and then we handed it over, to the web team and we're making smaller steps. It's not like one big ta-da. It's like this section of the website,
Yeah.
that section of the website, architecture change, but it was complex too. It was like 5 sites into one. And so it was super helpful with the project we picked. That was like
Yeah.
what it would have
That's
been a $400,000
that's
project, and now we're doing internally on our own with a bunch of agentic use, prompting.
uh,
That's amazing.
that's impressive. Well, as we shift to sort of this phase two, and I think, Craig, you called it outcome based. I think you said you'll get to quality and outcome use cases. So define what you think is phase two.
Yeah. If you think of phase one as more or volume, right?
Hmm.
You think of phase two as quality and doing better. And
Yep.
that's really, by the way, that's the promise of AI. I mean, like, at the end of the day, and so when we looked at it, we said, well, it's a smaller number of people that are taking on the complex use cases, but those that are, we're seeing really great results. And we could talk about that in a sec, but just generally to answer your question, the that's kind of how we think about it. So like an example would be we talked about like an efficiency use case, but we're talking about analyzing campaign data
Hmm.
or even like the simplest thing I've seen with the start. I think Kathy and I had talked about this twice because we did the podcast twice.
Yeah.
Was there's this crazy thing happening with oh, actually, hold on. Before I talk, and Sydney came on my show and brought this up, but like something using AI for segmentation, just something that we know works. These things are providing results. You might say, well, that's not a complex
Hmm.
use case. Well, actually, yeah, it is, right? Because it's not just, hey, go into,
Summarize. Yeah.
Gemini and say,
Summarize
right?
this.
It's like, no, we're putting data into an agent here and it's coming back and making recommendations. So yeah, we had to use bigger buckets, but like, we had analyzing campaign data, even creating visual content, which by the way, I love. Have you guys been playing with Gamma? That thing is,
Yes,
man, Jesus.
I
Um,
know.
And then enrichment, scoring, those things, which is more of like that sort of falls in the
Yeah,
ICP target account range. That was like 50% of the folks that did it, but the results were pretty amazing. So like when we saw marketing teams that used AI for campaign analysis and account scoring, they were 3 times more likely to increase pipeline, um, and 5 times likelier to see increased conversion. Now, that's good. Those are the things like, I work in a venture firm, as you know, it's, we are tracking efficiency metrics like, how much net new ARR are you creating with against your
yeah,
expenses and or your heads. But like the real one is the dashboard, like the big stuff, like can we affect conversion rates? Can we affect win rates and those stuff? And the early indicators are that we can. So like, look, 50% are in phase two. That's a lot. I mean, if you think about
that
like
is
we
one.
were doing the math, it took 13 years for SMBs from the introduction of Salesforce.com. By the way, that's if you ask Gemini, that's the first cloud application. We can debate that. But 13 years for SMBs to get to 50% adoption of cloud-based apps like email and file sharing. 13. In three, if you use OpenAI as the timestamp, that's 3 years for us to get to where we are right now.
Yeah.
And Sydney is like a perfect example. She's like, "Oh no, no, we're getting in a room and we're figuring this out right now, right?" And so think
Yeah.
about where she came from in a year then. They got in a room, they got to phase one, and then they're like, "Okay, let's go. What are these things?" That's the kind of stuff that's happening, and the results look good. Like it's early, but the results look good. So that's what when we're talking about phase two is can we do better using AI? And it's looking pretty good. I still think there's such what's encouraging, and I tell them it's hard to write in a report is like it's good and we're still figuring it out. Like normally in these tech markets, we figure it out, then it gets good. And a bunch of people like there's dead bodies everywhere getting there, right? In this case, like even if as we are figuring it out as a market, we're seeing good results. That's amazing. So that's phase two for you, in my opinion.
I look at phase two. So Sydney, I'm curious because I know your report had like you saw a 50% increase in I think velocity
Yeah.
and things like that. I look at phase two. If you go back, 'cause I think we're all around then. In the early 2000s, you had business process optimization. And I think of this similar in that to get to phase two, you have to rethink your processes. Like I know
Mm.
people go, oh, SDRs are sending out AI emails. Well, people get in touch with SDR because they can't get the information they need. So could we rethink, Sydney, what you talked about, like your website? Could you redo your website so people can get more of the information they need so they don't need to talk to an SDR? So to me, it's like, how do you start to look at things differently? And Sydney, you brought up something when we first talked about uh, I think it's agentic response to signals, if I have that right.
Mhm. Yep.
And, get rid of your marketing automation system, no more nurture. So what does that look like at G2 operationally? Like
Yeah.
what has had to change from roles or workflows or even your team design? Like what does that really mean?
Well, I think you want to start with the outcome in mind. That is the new model, right? Like, what
Yeah,
outcome are we trying to impact? And
yeah,
I think Craig, nailed it because it's speed. That is the thing with AI. Like AI, it's all about going faster. AI native
Yeah.
companies are going faster. So if you're not AI native, you got to figure out how to go faster because if you don't, then you're going to be outpaced and outplayed. And so, one of the outcomes that we're looking for is like, speed to meeting booked. And if you take that process, what does that look like today, or before for us, right? Somebody
yeah.
comes to your website, hopefully they fill out a form, then that gets lead scored, and then it sends a note to an SDR who hopefully puts it in a 15-step cadence, like to get the meeting booked. And I remember, in March, I was in a meeting and I was like looking at our conversion rates because I'm like, inbound is the easiest thing to automate. It is perfectly right for agentic. It is the same process. That process does not change. And so I was like, how are the best companies doing it? I went onto Qualified's website and I like played with it for a second. my account team came up. I booked it. I booked a meeting that day. That day I booked a meeting and I was on a call that afternoon. Talk about speed to meeting,
Yeah, that's
right? And I'm
amazing.
like, that's it. That's what we need to do. That is the new bar. It's not just speed to meeting booked. That was speed to meeting had,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like you say you want, like to minutes meeting, minutes to meeting. Like how about like that was in just like like sold. Where do I sign up? Right. And so I think, that is what we've been focusing on is like, how do I convert more of my website visitors? Because we know traffic is down, but quality is up. And if I can get that prospect in front of my rep as fast as possible, that is what we're going to do. And we tested the old model to the new model as we added new agentic meeting booking capabilities and agents on our website, and now as we redesign the website, I'm asking the team to imagine the website design with the agent as the primary interface, not the web property itself. If they've just come from an LLM having a conversation, they don't want to land on a website and navigate. They want to continue the conversation and they want to get to the outcome. And ideally, that's a meeting. And so, how do we rethink the user experience in this new paradigm? Oh, I just said paradigm in this new world,
You
right?
did. You had a whole
So,
bunch of you went user
did I
experience
did
in
I
this new
boom boom
paradigm.
boom?
Oh
Oh,
man.
oh,
I mean, did
gross.
Chat
Yeah.
GPT write that?
Chat,
Is
you
the
would
question.
please rewrite. Yes, what I just
It's
said.
rewrite it's coaching.
I'll
Actually,
rewrite it in the transcript for you.
Thank you.
I'll need
yeah.
you to take it out, Sid.
That's so I just was like 2012 myself. Yeah. But
I love that,
but
by the
yeah.
way. That
Yeah.
that that was like that's so important, I think. And I'm sure the Inverta folks have been trying to people for, however long you guys have been around. People come in and go, we want to do ABM. You're like, whoa, hold on a sec. Let's back up. Like, what are we trying to solve from a business perspective? How do you do it today? And then how do we fix it? That, on the AI side, what Sydney just said, because everyone's like, well, if what metrics are affected in phase two of AI, I'm like, no, don't ask me. Like, ask you, what metric do we want to, attack? And
Yeah.
then we work backwards. We figure out how we work. And then we figure out what can be automated and what can't, or what can be done better with even process, right? And like, I think that's key. Like when he's probably not going to be happy that I brought it up, but I asked Dan Gottlieb, right? He's at Gartner dealing with the Fortune 100. I'm like, well, what makes good AI execution? He's like, the best companies spend 3 to 6 months. Now we don't have that kind of time, but if you're at Citibank, you do, and
Yep.
figuring out exactly how they work. And then instead of coming back and saying, hey, we want to do AI, they come back and say something really specific. We want to do account plan, no, QBRs, and we'd like AI to create a 3-page report using these, 4 data sources, and this is what each page looks like. He's like, those are the people that are successful. They looked at like, what are we missing, and could automation help us? And then that's how you're going to be really successful in phase two. I think we'll see this a lot. It was I love this quote from here, like Dave Brock, who's a buddy of mine, big old school sales consultant. He used to talk about during the CRM, when CRM first came out. He's like, I spent more time dealing with presidents and senior VPs of sales, because we didn't have CROs back then, explaining to them that, yeah, just because you bought CRM does not mean you're going to increase revenue, right? And it's like that's what Sydney's sort of guarding it. She's saying, no, no, I'm going to figure out what is it we want to solve. You work backwards from that outcome, and then you go figure out how you're doing it today, and then you go fix it. I think that's a really important point, and I definitely see that. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we have CEOs saying we're going to be AI first, and then everyone has to scramble and figure it out. So that's where that at least people have that impetus to go do that, and they know they can get budget for it. But the how you execute that is following Sydney's sort of playbook there, and to be effective at it. That's for sure.
Yeah. It
I,
is
I
impressive.
it reminds me of I was reading a blog post and the going into annual planning, here it comes. Your budget's flat and we want you to produce 20% more, right? Well, here, shocker. What? Never knew that was going to happen. And so it's like, and by the way, I did it last year. You want me to do it again? And it just seems like such a daunting task. And so when you think about the cost to acquire is getting more expensive, we all have retention challenges. Like, how do I do it? And before I probably would have said, we're going to attack this one area. We're just going to make it really good. Like I like focus. It's my favorite F
Yeah,
word.
that's great.
And this, I wish I could remember to give credit of the person that wrote the post, but it was like, actually, you could also improve 4 points of the journey 5%. I was like, oh, right, right. So it's like, as you're looking at the complete customer experience because we're all like, oh God, what am I going to do? My traffic's going down and people are going to LLMs and like, how do I get more and more and more? And it's like, well, how do we also become more efficient in the overall process itself? How do we deliver a better customer experience? How do we make a better impression on first call by doing more diligence on informing the rep so they just have an excellent first call, not a discovery call. They've already done the discovery because we've helped them figure out how to do it. They're in problem solving mode with a customer. And the customer is like, oh my God, how did you know all that? And it's because we built a really great account research prompts and like help the rep be more strategic because we have access to all this information. Like that is a point in time, that is the moment. And then what's the next moment? Like we got to blow their socks off, and like when we're doing the demo and we have to make it customized, we have to give them insights. Like every single human interaction it needs to be excellent. There is no gray area anymore
Yes.
because there's less at
No.
bats, people are doing more research. And then guess what? The time to value, like once they become your customer, you need to double down on loving them, not hand them over to some junior account manager that's going to go. Like we just have to reimagine every piece of the customer journey and do better. That's it.
Just that.
Easy,
Should
right?
we
Just
end the
that.
show on
Easy.
that? That was really good.
It was. I'm gonna back you up now because I agree with you, Sydney. I think that's right. But then as I step back, this is about the marketing organization. And when I've had conversations with marketing leaders, it's like they're trying to think, how do I think about this? Because a lot of it is, what do I keep in, like, what's core to what my business is? And I'm going to step back because what I got inspired, I dusted off my old Jeffrey Moore book, and he had that whole thing, what's core and what's context. Core is like, this is essential. These are capabilities essential to my business. Either it affects my mission, my buyer experience, or its differentiation. And context is things that I could either have, now you could say AI assisted, or I could outsource, or I could automate, and it's not going to lose any strategic advantage. So we started to look at that, but AI doesn't decide what's core, what's context for you, but it does make you force some decisions. And so I want to step back now because we've talked a lot about AI, but where do human-centered skills show up? Like what skills are essential now in an organization? Because I talked about like we are 8 different functions. We're product marketing, we're paid media, like in marketing. And Sydney, I've heard you talk about I want to have outcome-based pods, which made sense for that thing, like, hey, I want to change this meeting, you get a group of people. But there's certain things where I think as we start to build out agents, as we start to manage agents, as AI really is infused everywhere, how do you ensure there's some human qualities that we bring to it, like trust, thinking, taste, like who's designing that type of stuff? Who does the critical thinking? Who verifies those AI outputs? And Sydney, you had a post about that with trust, like with all these workflows, like making sure who's following up on those, who's making sure they're there. How can you defend the AI insights? And so I look at that. Sydney, what do you think in your organization? Like, what's core that has to be in-house that is going to require human-centered skills? Now, they may be AI assisted, but what are those core things you need?
I mean, like the easy answer here is judgment. We used to like my
Hmm.
Tim Sanders, if you've met him, he's our chief innovation officer, and he calls
Yeah,
it the Rick Rubin economy. And he talks about like,
it's
does this
true.
amazing, like Rick doesn't know how to play an instrument, he doesn't know how to work a soundboard, yet he's the most successful producer of all time, right? He just has good judgment and refine. And so I
And good
think
taste.
and good taste, right? But he in music, right? So he knows music, he knows what people like inherently, but he's probably also studied it by just being a curious human. If you've ever watched him be interviewed, he's like very,
Yes.
you could tell he's tuned in. So I think, the thing that we as humans can do is be tuned into our customers. And while we have the ability to use AI, just was on a conversation earlier to like do all the customer intelligence and the collection of calls and taking transcripts and like summarizing it. I mean, like, and it can be always on, giving you new insights. That is awesome, but never lose the human connection, which is why I think as marketers, we're seeing this resurgence of community and events, and people still want to be with people. And so, yes, you can outsource the research, and like aggregate all those customer insights into something that's super valuable, but you still have to test it in front of the human. You still have to spend time there. You still have to get your inspiration from conversations that you're having that are not with the AI. Because I mean, like, I'm an experiential learner that's just like, I fall asleep at page 10 of any book I've ever opened. And so I need that inspiration from others. And I think that human element still will be here. I don't know where or how that ever goes away. Does that answer? Sorry, Kathy, I don't know if
Yeah.
I answered
Yeah.
directly what you're
No.
asking, but
But I think I was looking at like what is required. Like who is like you could do all that research, but you need someone to evaluate it, verify that output, defend it, be able to. I agree. So
yeah,
Craig, if I
it's
look
like
at you, you've
outsourcing SDRs never worked, right? Because they weren't
oh,
culturally your people,
that's right. And
right? They
so
couldn't they couldn't tell the story in the same way. They couldn't be, like it's
right.
just different. Yeah.
No,
Sorry.
agreed. And I think I agree with you. I think as we start to look at AI, I think everyone think, well, we can just have AI do everything. And what I want to bring us back to, this is about org and people. And so, Craig, I'm going to ask you you've talked about go-to-market engineers and RevOps.
Yep.
So, what roles do you think will change, shrink, be reconfigured, and which of those roles also you think will rise with AI? Like,
Yeah. So, well, I'm going to answer that, but first, let me just add on
hmm
a yes and. Sydney, what do you think of that? I do a yes and on you. Um, so one is, yeah, the I've heard on multiple occasions people talking about taste, and you brought up taste. Like at the end of the day, the humans are going to be the arbiters of what touches the customer. And that goes both ways. One is if you don't know, the AI won't know. So like the AI can help you, but like people that think AI is going to solve all your problems from an ideation and strategy perspective, that can assist, but like you gotta say, we're gonna sell to these guys, and this is how we're gonna go after them. Let's see if AI can help. Then on
yeah,
the
you have
second,
to be accountable for
yeah,
the
and
output.
then yeah, exactly. The second side, this should be exciting to marketers because you are the final line of offense, like of taste.
hmm
Dave Boscovich at our event calls them tastemakers. He's like, I'm looking to hire tastemakers, right? Because
hmm
that's key. So that becomes an important trait. The reason it's exciting for is that marketing used to have to hire a lot to do busy work, right? And so that, wiping those things away and allowing marketing teams to be about, if you listed all those roles require taste and judgment. And eliminating a lot of the the crap, so to speak, and being able to focus on good decision making should be exciting to everyone. The second thing I'd say is like as you think about the marketing org of the future, so you got tastemakers, you figure out all the things that need to be done, and if you think agentic, you should think about you're hiring someone and but you're hiring an agent to go tackle that particular task or set of tasks. That's going to be different for a lot, and we're going to learn a lot. But like that is a different sort of point of view. People have been lobbying me on that one, and I kind of like it. And Dan says the same thing. He's like, look, there's a job description. What AI fits that job description? Like what agent can help me go do that? And so we're going to see that across the middle in marketing, a lot of the middle of like sort of ensuring machines are connected or routing leads and these things. These, there's automation for it, but there's a lot of human involvement, and these things can be wiped out. Um, and um, and then the marketing team can be made up of really smart people like we have that aren't underwater, creating a white paper because sales has a sales call tomorrow and they need the thing. They can go do that. So anyway, that was in response. So, but in terms of like bringing AI into the org, I think so. One thing we found was that when RevOps led the implementation, now granted, we went across the go-to-market. It was they were 22% more likely to have high impact from their AI initiatives. Now, I just think what that comes from is like at the end of the day, you do need to plan, decide, execute, follow up, and these things. And there are people with experience, like in RevOps, in actually implementing organizational wide technology change like that. So it doesn't have to be right. Like people's like, well, I don't have right. Well, do you have someone there that understands how to? Because there's marketing ops folks that do that, but you kind of want someone at this point to be in a leadership role that understands how to roll these things out. And I think that's why that data shows up there. On the go-to-market engineer, is 51% have hired or considering hired. And similar numbers, I think over like you had like when you had a go-to-market engineer, you're 20% more likely to have high impact AI implementations. So here's the issue with AI is Sydney's team meets, they go create this amazing thing, and then 1 week later, innovation changes. It is moving so fast that, in my opinion, we need like vibe coders or these folks that are just so wonky and in the weeds on AI just to keep us up, right? Because it's happening so fast. So it's not just like, there's a bunch of go-to-market engineers. By the way, my niece just got out of college and she's like, what should I do? I want to get in tech. I'm like, go-to-market engineer. So now she's a intern go-to-market engineering for Neil Harrington because that's like they can understand. They have to be trained on kind of what Sydney was talking about, which is you got to build backwards from the outcome and the use case. But these are the folks that are going to be playing with the machines all the time and looking at what's happening and following the market because it's happening really fast. So, in my opinion, having the vibe coder go-to-market engineer in every group is key right now and will be going forward because look, right now, your favorite app, I'm just going to tell you right now, in 6 months, four 20-year-old kids in Brooklyn are going to create a competing app. They will.
Yep.
And then 25 of them will follow. And so you just need that this is like a rate of change that we've never seen before. So I do like an operational lead in terms of any kind of AI, not just projects, but just overall strategy. And then I like this idea of whatever you want to call it, go-to-market engineer or whatever, sort of being, those folks that have their hands in the code or whatever you want to say and following the market. So that's I think that's a change. I think it's happening, and the data tells
Yep.
us that. So
Yeah. I think it's happening. I think it'll be interesting long term what that governance looks like.
yeah,
So, Sydney, so okay, someone builds this vibe code and they have this agentic thing and then they leave.
Yeah.
Like, who
That's
knows if
I
that's running and how's that going to be
right.
managed?
I've been advocating something a little bit different, and what our data shows us is that IT is back in play. And
that's
because
true. Yeah.
agentic is a company-wide initiative, right? Like I sat next to people on planes for OpenAI, and I heard them talking about like wall to wall, right? Like they want to go in and they want to own these companies. And so I think, and the report says this too, there's like this build versus buy aspect. And so my kind of thoughts here are, I think you actually want to start with an AI architect. You want to have someone that owns the
I think
AI
that's good.
strategy for the company, and they're likely going to be CTO or right hand to the CTO, and they're going to determine what is the underlying model that they're allowing to be used, so they have security. They're going to develop the governance and guardrails. They're going to have best practices and approaches, and and they're going to own which platforms win, right? Where the build platforms, they're not going to allow marketing to have their N8N, and sales gets their relevance, and like all of this. No, there's going to be platforms and like how they vet the agents in those platforms, and then there's going to be AI builder technologies, and then there's going to be the LLM of choice and strategies of how to use those. I think that's going to happen in the
I
next
like this.
like a
Yep,
year.
I
agree.
And
love
then
this.
you'll have the departmental, let's call them engineers, so the go-to-market engineers in those departments that are still following in those footsteps, and they are the experts. And then for those people that manage, because I think we're gonna lose a layer in our org charts, right? And so ICs are going to be managing agents, and we need to train those ICs how to manage people, because they're actually managing, like, and that's where I think, Kathy, you'll get they leave and now no longer it's managed. Like, not if you approach it this way, I think.
I
Because
I
they'll
agree.
be, they'll be on record, like, where, and this is what I did, was like, Anisha Craig, I hired as an intern this summer, and to help document, and like, where are we going to store, and like, what agents we built already, and like, what's our approach and like new processes that we're going to do. So at least we have record of what's out there, what it's doing, who owns it, just to keep track as we encourage people to use. I do have a little bit of a radical thought, like, um, on, if you were to start fresh, like if you were a startup and you didn't have to, would we still design marketing in the functional way that we have with product marketing and brand? And I might try something radically different that starts with outcomes. And so if the first outcome is like, I need to attract new people to my company, I would merge brand and demand into one team. And I call them like brand building and signal capture, something like that. And so what would the outcome be? It would be awareness, share voice, demo requests. Maybe, right? Like a little bit more of the PLG
Mhm.
motion is
I
really what
like
it
this.
sounds
Yep.
like, right? But it's a combined team, one leader, one driver, and they are responsible for brand building, digital presence, execution, all the way to like meeting booked. And then there's a new team that's like relationship and engagement. And so they're trying to go from the signal to expanding to the buying committee. So this is a mix maybe of like campaign managers and SDRs and a couple of product marketer type brains that are really thinking about, how do I architect across personas for I'm going in to build relationships, and I'm owning this across the entire customer lifecycle, not just for the pipeline, right?
Yeah.
And so they get deep expertise on personas, maybe a persona owners, and maybe they're evangelists, maybe they are the personas, right? And their job is building relationships and inspiring and educating those users throughout the entire process. And then the last team I'm calling product love, right? And it's really like, how do you make sure that they're driving adoption and usage in the product? They're educating customers. They're thinking about in-product experiences that connects to the engagement of the second team. And yeah, they kind of, they can kind of sound like, well, isn't that what these people did? But I'm encouraging, like, no, I think we're going to merge these teams, and they have a shared outcome, and we're going to rewrite their job descriptions. And
I like
That's
and
it.
cool.
like it'd be
I
It's
like
different.
it.
radical. It's definitely
It's
radical.
radical.
Well, I don't know. It is, but what I like is, I've heard this narrative where everyone's going to be a generalist and you just have an AI superpower. And I'm like, no, I think no, because if that's the case, why do you need marketing at all? They might as well outsource it to just high
An
school kids,
agency. Yeah. Oh
an
yeah.
agent.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
And so I think you need that. So then I mean, I agree. I think those skills, I like how you bundled those up because first when you talked about outcome based, but how you did that, I think makes sense because you have the right skill set there to do
Right.
that. And so let me ask you this. If we do stuff like that, AI is making us more efficient, do you need the same size marketing team as you have now? And Sydney, I'm not saying this right now with G2, but that's questions I'm being asked. PE firms, CFOs are coming. It's making us more efficient. Do I need 50 marketers? Do
Well,
I need
that's the problem.
75?
We talked about this at our advisory board, and they were like, the big do not is don't put your org chart with a bunch of agents and go, oh, looky, I just doubled the size of my team with nothing else. Cause like now every CFO is going to be like, well, just build an agent and cut your team in half. And we haven't
Yep.
proven yet that the agents
Yeah.
they can make us more efficient and faster, but they can't take the entire
Yep.
job away. And so we all came out of that conversation going, do not do that. Like don't show your CFO that picture. You think it's great, but it's really not.
No, it's
And
not.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so it's like I don't know yet. I don't know yet. I think
Yeah.
we were able to really do a lot with technology in the last decade to make us, more systematic and predictable and efficient in that way. And this is a new world we haven't. I don't think we figured it out yet.
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
And like we got to be really I mean, look, I'm on this side. Sydney's been there with me where we got to cut this amount from the marketing team and we got to go figure it out. But what Sydney's saying is, we don't just go back and go, well, I'm just going to use agents because by the way, that's what everyone who doesn't understand your business wants you to do. I
Yeah.
mean, if you have the time to do it, I would still follow Sydney's approach, which is focus on an area. So without doing your radical reorg,
Yeah.
Sid, but like taking
Mm.
your original thought, which is,
You take a pod and do it. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and because you remember, like the agent is being hired to do stuff, right? And until you know what that is and figure that out and test it and make sure it can do that, this dangerous road. I mean, because like look, there's definitely, I'm not saying there's waste in marketing departments because for the last 2 years, they've been asked to cut already. Like, actually, what I would argue is many of them have been cut down to the bare bones. And actually, they should be looking at with the folks that I'm left with, what can I do more with, right? Because it's been kind of bloody in marketing. In my opinion, not exactly fair, but it has happened. But yeah, it's better to work backwards in a focused area. And I know you got to work fast, and you can with AI, but like versus like org wide, we're going to just bring in a bunch of agents to do that. That won't work. But what will work is what Sydney brought up with like 22 minutes into the webinar, which is focus, figure it out in a specific area, and then you can go to the next one. Um, and you will be able to have a different organization as a result, but you have to really go kind of one by one until you do figure it out.
Yeah. It's interesting, Sydney, when you brought up about the first team, and having brand and signals and all that. I've been thinking about brand is probably one of the areas that we affected most profoundly by AI. Because I think of, your org says who's going to do the job, but brand is, I think, what you're talking about is how your systems show up to the buyer. And so suddenly we have this AI mediated buying journey where the AI agent's going out and doing like you talked about, doing discovery, evaluating the fit, comparing solutions and then making the short list. What does brand look like then? And is it those things like, is it more criteria? Does brand become part creative, but a lot more the go-to-market engineer, like the operational side of it? What's your data quality? What's your routing intelligence? What's your consistency? What's your knowledge graph? Really, what's your agentic personality? Like, what do you want showing up? Like, so for brand and what you're talking about, how do you see those skill sets? Like, and I'll ask you to both. Like, part of it is like, how does brand stewardship show up now with go-to-market engineers, or more of just
I
an open
don't think they
question?
mix. I'm going to say I don't think they mix.
All right.
I think being a great brand builder is a creative and emotional skill set. And they tend to be less analytical, right? Most,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so what when you talk about brand, the number one thing that brand does, it's how it makes you feel.
Mm-hmm.
That's it, right? It's an emotional reaction. And so I think, the how you think about brand and approach it and the creative aspect to it and like the human to human connection, I think that's designed differently. I don't think you outsource that to agents. I mean, yeah, sure, they can like, what you might have outsourced, like, here's my ad copy, like go create 6 versions of that or like that kind of stuff. But like the true essence of brand and culture human properties. I don't think that's no, I don't think that's outsourced or
But
sorry,
how
agentified.
does that brand show up when you're agentic stuff though? Is that
Well,
where
I
that
think you
go-to-market
still
engineer shows up? It's like,
no. I'm struggling with that. I don't know. Like
okay,
I'm when I think about like okay, buyer behavior is changing because they're going to LLMs. You can still be the answer for the LLMs, and the tactical thing is like understanding your personas, the jobs to be done, and like being the still the resource to the end user of their job to be done. So if you're thinking of your end user or if you're buyer, like you can still be the the citation source and then when they come to whatever it is that you do, right? If they come to your website, if they come to an event, that's where I was like advocating, like, you gotta make it great, right?
yeah,
Yeah, like you can't half that because they won't come back.
yeah,
And so, I think about like the lovable hackathons. Like that was a great idea, right? Like, and they had people
mhm,
showcasing like, hey, this weekend it's free. Come one, come all. We're gonna like open it up and we're gonna go play and hack together. And then they created this community of like users that then they hired and paid to keep that momentum going. But like it was really what's that
yeah,
market like smart marketing. And so I think and they just happen to pick a great brand and name, but I still like that to me, like you're still creating the brand moments where people are having that emotional response with whatever it is that you're curating. I don't think that's the go-to-market engineer at all. I think they're in a whole different part of the equation in my mind.
Yeah. Whoever owns the brand is a tastemaker. They're not a and they have to be there and you're gonna have to hire a good one or a good team. Um and their access to information so that they can make good decisions has changed, right? They won't have,
yeah,
they don't need a market research firm necessarily. Well, they still might, but there's just ways that data. But
mhm,
like I agree. If you look at the thing, so look, first of all, Sydney hasn't mentioned this, but every time I talk about AI, she yells at me and says, "No, Craig, this is about if it doesn't help the customer or the buyer, then what are we doing here?" She reminds me of this all the time. So the minute you ask a
because you say
question,
you should do it for the board, and she says no, you do it for the
yeah,
customer.
yeah,
I
I was
recall,
mad at the
Oh,
yeah,
board. Yeah. Oh, she yelled at me on the prep call. Yeah, yeah. But it
yeah,
happens all the
yeah.
time, Kathy, just to be clear. And
okay,
it's a good
yeah, okay,
reminder,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it is a really good reminder. And Brand's one of those,
yeah,
right? Which is
yeah,
like, and she keeps saying, I know you're right here. It's weird to say Sydney keeps saying, well, they go to an event, it has to be the best event ever. So we do have to remind ourselves that we have to be really careful outsourcing the last mile that touches that buyer because we're trying to make the
mhm,
greatest human buying
yeah,
experience that we can. Brand falls into that. Now, how we get there, that's changed. The go-to-market engineers can be in the back thinking about ways that they can
yeah,
provide data. Well, particularly data and information. That is an incredible advantage for the brand maker now. And
yeah.
so, yeah, I
It
would agree
does
with you.
affect how you can practice marketing, but I agree with
Mhm.
you, Sydney. I think what's going to stand out are things like events, community, like interviews, even this, like because anyone can crank out AI content now. So I think it's the real stuff
Yeah.
that's going to stand out.
And funny enough, going back to like the LLMs, they want user generated content. So if you want people talking positively about you, which is actually, leading reviews, all that good stuff, that is actually what then starts back at the beginning of for the agentic. So it's kind of
Yeah.
funny,
All
right? It comes full
Yeah,
circle.
that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
right. Close out question. Sydney, CMOs are navigating this now. What advice do you have for their orgs? What do they need to be thinking about in the next 12 to 24 months?
Mm. Continuing to embrace this radical change. I'm like, we don't have playbooks yet, but we're in the playground, so we should be having fun. Like our job is hard, and it's changing, and expectations are unrealistic. So find the fun in it, and go encourage your teams to play, to investigate, to try, to like really be inspired by the opportunity that we have in front of us, and not look at it as another daunting task. We lived through the pandemic. That was hard. Like this should be more fun than that kind of
There-
hard,
There's your
you
quote of the
know?
day. This
Yeah.
should be more
Yeah.
fun than the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah, it should be.
Yeah,
So
that's a
yeah, embrace change. Like just get in the right mindset. If you're not there, like find it.
It's good. All right, Craig, individual marketers, what should they be doing if they want to be relevant?
Oh, well, I would still say the same thing. I mean, you have to learn. I have a quote that I use all the time from Jordan Crawford, which is the best way to learn is to start talking to the machines. And that's what you got to do. If you're a marketer, so I had a great example on tastemaking. So I mentioned this guy, David Boscovich. He's in our portfolio. This guy, he went
Hmm.
from
Yeah.
37 go-to-market employees to 5. And he's been doing great. And he was hiring a content person. And he said, it took me 37 interviews to get to the right person. That 36 of them walked in with a binder of their content, just like the old school sort of content presentation. He's like, the 37th one came in and said, here's how I use AI to allow me to do this, and then showed the output. And then the output was, beautifully done. But that combination of the two things, which is the efficiencies and the frankly, higher levels of quality, right? The ability to deliver relevance to the buyer at a scale that they've never done before, but combined with their taste. Like, this is how I get there and this is what I produce. That is for all marketers, right? It's going to be, I actually think what Sydney said is true. I'm excited for us. And you've already seen it. When you put marketers in a hackathon for 2 months, they get addicted to this stuff. I mean, this is not actually as daunting as it looks. It's not. You just got to go. And once they do, they become addicted to it. And it's like, and by the way, I could tell you this because I got young sons, and the next generation of folks coming up, like, they're AI up the wazoo. I mean, I was doing a high school application. My son, I was writing my parent statement, and he goes, Dad, that sounds like AI. AI would say, I'm like going, whoa, we are in a new world. So the new folks coming up will actually have to judge whether they have taste. I think we have a ton of marketers that have taste right now, but they have to embrace how they individually would, work in this new era with AI and be able to talk to it. And then at departmentally, like what's their vision for how we work?
Yeah. You have to
It's a
evaluate,
combination
what
of
does
things,
good look like? What does good look like?
and you
That's
should
about it.
prove it. Because
Yeah.
Yeah.
people like
So
Sydney are
in that
only going to
example,
provide people that she's only going to hire
in
people that show good judgment. So
100%. And I want to say two things. One, like to Craig, is where I am with Rain. She's my digital twin, Queen in French.
call her
Is of
Rain. Got
course,
it. Like
hello,
Rain.
and of course she's my digital twin. That's who I, like, and I have her interview me. Like, I don't just say go write a blog, like go write a application for my kid to get him into this school. I like, I need to do this. Like, interview me. What questions do you want to ask? We think about the questions, we have a conversation, and then it's my words and my sentiment and my feeling, right? Like, I've been using that model to get a lot of like good content out of me, where before I just stare at a blank page. So that's the advice for Craig if he
Well,
wasn't already doing
but
it. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, AI did not write that. My son accused me of writing like AI. This is
Oh,
important. I would
oh,
never
that's
do that for my son.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, no.
Oh, yeah.
But I do like what you just said. I got to think of the name. I was thinking my AI agent would just be named Jimmy. I just,
I love it.
yeah, why not? Just
Yeah.
like I
And then
want
I'll
like a
make you a
regular name.
t-shirt that says Jimmy. I love it. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Jimmy, Jimmy. Okay, I'm going to hold you to that one. The other
Okay.
thing that I wanted to say, and I know we're like going long, but this is such a good conversation. Like, um, when I was talking to Francois Dufour, like somebody that I follow in this area and has been
Yeah.
a good inspiration, he's like, what he looks for, because he interviews for a lot of people, and like, what is the Gen Z rock star AI first look like? And he's like, I've got the person. Her name's Molisha. I'm not going to give her last name because I don't want her hired away from them. But he's like, she has three jobs. She's the launch engineer for product marketing. She's a senior manager for social media, and she's my go-to AI engineer. And she starts everything with AI, starts with a prompt. She like looks to automate wherever she can. Like, oh, I could just automate that, like just naturally,
Mhm.
very entrepreneurial and
Yeah.
focused, and she moves extremely fast. And so when you start looking for not just are they AI forward, but like what are the attributes of their personality that make them
Yeah.
super like rock star potential? Like, our buddy Lars Nelson used to say fire in the belly, right, Craig? Like it's this different kind of
Yeah.
mindset of like entrepreneurial inspiration, innovation, and drive that I'm so excited is making a comeback,
Mhm.
right? Oh my God, Gen
It
Zers
is.
who just want to go crank and work hard and like, I don't care about 996 or any of that stuff, but I care about people who are purpose driven, who work hard, who want to figure things out and like are not afraid to tackle any challenge you throw at them. That's fun. That's cool. Look for that.
But they need a leader like you then. That is tone from the top, Sydney.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Mm,
that's what you set as a CMO.
mhm. Yeah.
I've seen it from what I don't know you that well, but what I've heard across the board has been very positive that way. But I
Oh,
think
thank
you
you.
do set the tone from the top, and that makes a difference for the people
Yeah.
that work for
Yeah.
you. So, all
She's
right.
the
I
Whew.
think
best.
we're at
She's the
time,
best
Well,
but
CMO I
thank you.
know. So yeah,
Uh,
that was
now
not
you're gonna
it.
yeah.
have to.
Where's the
Oh, but now you're
hearts?
gonna be sending notes to other CMOs who are gonna come back at you now. That what
Oh
happened with
yeah,
Matt. Remember
she's
in
the
that
best CMO
contract?
I know. No offense, other CMOs who I like as well.
We like them all.
Amazing.
I want to say
Okay.
thank you very much. This has been a really enjoyable conversation. I've learned a lot, and this conversation just keeps up with so many marketing leaders. So it was great to hear your point of view from both of you. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.